Namaskar and greetings. Welcome to Module 3 of SDP 1. My name is Dr. VP Rupam and I am presently working with the Student Registration Division of the Indira Gandhi National Open University. Friends, we shall be talking about management of student support systems in this program. In the first program, you have got an overview of open and distance learning, or ODL as we call it, and you have got an understanding of the theoretical foundation of ODL and the different institutional arrangements that have emerged across the country. So you would now be in a position to appreciate the important role that open and distance learning is playing across the world in expanding opportunities of quality higher education, in creating opportunities for lifelong learning, and in the process, building a knowledge society. In the second module, you have got a detailed exposure to the principles and practices related to development of instructional material, and you would have been able to appreciate how much of effort goes into preparing these self-instructional materials and how an effort is made to build the teacher into the text so that they are learner friendly and they are complete in themselves. Well, what logically follows is the third module, and that is on management of student support systems. Let me tell you, friends, that management of student support systems is perhaps the most challenging task for ODL institutions. At the same time, it is also the most exciting task. Program development and program delivery, they together constitute the ODL ecosystem. Both these operations are closely interlinked, and the success of a program offered through ODL mode depends on how well these two components are coordinated or whether they are working in harmony or not. The ODL systems depend a great deal on student support systems for their success. Well, as I said, there are two components. There is this program development component. When we talked about development of self-instructional material, we talked about conceptualizing a program, then getting the courses written, then giving them the final shape of self-instructional material. That was about program development. The program delivery deals with taking these programs to the students and helping them complete the programs. So these two components together actually work and make the whole system work. The student support system deals with the program delivery part of it, but let me tell you, there is more to it. The student support systems play various other roles other than taking the programs to the students and helping them complete it. They actually provide a ground, connect. They work as the bridge between the potential learners and the institution, and they also ensure integration of the enrolled students with the institutional mechanism, which is a very, very important determinant in the success of the students. Let us look at some of the important attributes of open and distance learning. The first attribute that comes to our mind is openness. Naturally, open and distance learning has to be open. What do I mean by openness? I'll try to explain this with an example. Let's say I want to join a master's degree program in sociology. And if I want to join this program in a regular university or a conventional university system, I will be required to have a bachelor degree with sociology as a specialization or a major or an honors. But if I open, if the program is opened to all the degree holders irrespective of their specialization or major, then that would be a step in the direction of openness. Similarly, if it is said that there shall be no upper age limit for admission in a particular program, that is also openness. Openness is essentially about lowering the entry barriers, freeing the programs from the rigid entry rules, and that the need for this has been felt across the world. And today, when we have opened these programs, we have lowered the entry requirements, we see that many students are successfully completing their programs, are benefiting from them. So perhaps the rigidities that were existing weren't really required. So openness is the first attribute. The second attribute of any ODL system is flexibility. For example, if I am allowed to complete a 6-month certificate program in, say, 1 year or 2 years, or if I am allowed to change the subjects while I am pursuing the program, because it so happens that I join a bachelor degree program and I choose, let's say, subjects history, sociology and political science. Later on, while on the program, I realize that political science is not something that interests me. I would rather study economics. Now, if the institution allows me to change my subject from political science to economics, it is a flexible system. Similarly, in today's world, mobility is very frequent. I am today in Delhi, tomorrow I might be in Hyderabad. So if I have joined a program and I shift my base to Hyderabad, and if I am allowed to continue my studies without any disruption, this would be a flexible system. Similarly, for example, now I am in Hyderabad, but I have to go to, let's say, Mumbai, while the university is conducting examinations. I would request the university that please allow me to appear in the examination in Mumbai. If the university allows me to do that, it is a flexible system. So this is about flexibility. Learner-centeredness is yet another important attribute. The systems and the processes of ODL institutions are built around the learner's convenience. I mean, you would see that in the design of self-instructional material, you would see that in the overall program design, you would see that in the student support systems as well. So learner-centeredness is another very important feature of any ODL institution. You might have come across these words and these concepts in module 1, but I am repeating them to put things in context, to connect the dots. Well, presence of a well-organized student support system is perhaps the most important defining characteristic of any ODL institutions. You remove student support system from an ODL framework and it will reduce to a correspondence education system of the 50s. An ODL institution may be less open or more open. It may be less flexible or more flexible depending on the vision of the institution, depending on the mandate given to it, depending on the learner population that it is catering to and other factors. But presence of an organized student support system is an absolute must, without which an ODL institution cannot function. For example, several ODL institutions in Germany have rather rigid entry rules, but they also have a very robust, strong support system. So, we shall be talking more about the support systems, their architecture, and how they are run. I, being a practitioner of support services, I shall be presenting before you a practitioner's perspective. I shall not delve deep into the theories of it. Theories you can perhaps pick up from the learning material. The first thing, when we start thinking about student support systems, the first question that we need to ask is, for whom are we building this student support system? It is very, very important, it is very, very crucially important to know about your learner population, to know about the geographies in which they are located, to know about their prior learning experiences, because all these things will go into shaping the support system. For example, I will take the example of media. Let us say that television is not accessible to a majority of the students you are going to serve. In that case, a television program would not at all be recommendable. Perhaps a radio would be more suitable medium for communication with them. So, the technology availability, technology accessibility, technology affordability, all these things have to be factored in while shaping the student support systems. The learner's needs will also decide the kind of systems that you have. Their characteristics. Are they predominantly rural or are they predominantly urban? What kind of structures, what kind of support systems they need, what are their expectations from the institution? All this will decide what kind of a support system that we need to put in place. Well, having understood your learner, let us understand the domain of student support services. What all does it cover? Now, let me begin by saying that the student support system comes into play even before a student is formally enrolled in a program. Pre-admission counseling is very, very important for our students. They need to be told about what program meets their requirement, suits their need, suits their aptitude. And this is very, very important because the success of the learner will depend on whether he or she has chosen the right program or not. Many times we notice that the students lose interest midway and decide to drop out, saying that no, this doesn't look like I'm interested in this program. Now, such situations could be avoided if we have a strong pre-admission counseling support system in place. And in all those places where learners are coming to interact with the institution, that again will depend on the kind of geography that you are required to serve as an institution. If you have, say, 50 districts or 50 cities where your learners are located, it would perhaps be a good idea to provide them support at every place. To supplement that, online support systems could also be put in place, but a face-to-face support has its own importance and its own effect. So, the first and the foremost thing in student support is providing them effective pre-admission counseling. We meet the student, we talk to them about their prior qualification and experience, their aspirations, and then tell them the variety of options that are available within the institution, the kind of programs that are on offer. Uh, in fact, during the pre-admission counseling, as you may come to a conclusion that the student, perhaps the needs that the kind of thing that the student is looking for is not available. In which case, it is perfectly all right to advise the students not to join any program. But this rarely happens because usually open distance learning institutions have a wide variety of programs on offer. And then again, the level matters. What kind of a commitment a student is willing to make? Is she willing to spend 6 months with the institution, or is she willing to spend 1 year, or is she ready for a long term commitment? And what are the opportunity costs? Thankfully, the opportunity cost in ODL is much, much less than the conventional regular mode of education because even in-service people are able to join these programs. So the point I'm trying to make is that a strong pre-admission counseling support has to be put in place uh, to make sure that the students don't drop out for reasons of wrong choice of program. That's very, very important because when a wrong choice is made, it is a wastage of resource for the student as well as for the institution. The effort that the institution makes in enrolling the student and nurturing the student goes waste. And then the next important thing that comes is establishment and maintenance of an effective network of learner support centers. There is this admission stage also, but I will combine these two stages because admission is also supported by our network of learner support centers. They play an active role in the entire admission process. So depending on the circumstances and the mandate and the vision of the institution, you may think of having a two-tier structure or a three-tier structure. If you are required to serve a relatively small geography, let's say 10 districts or let's say a population of 5 lakh or 10 lakh people or say 1 million people, you may not necessarily have a three-tier structure having your headquarters and then the regional centers and then the study centers. But if it is a very large area and a very large student population, perhaps a three-tier structure is recommended. So that will all depend on the kind of population you are required to serve, on the kind of geography you are working in, and on the kind of mandate that is given. Even with a small population, you may think of having a three-tier structure if you really think that this will help you in effective monitoring of the entire system. So establishment and maintenance of a network of learner support centers in itself is a challenge because the basic idea behind open and distance learning is to use the existing resources and not to create more resources, because all over the world higher education systems are under stress, financial stress as well. So here what we do is we make use of the idle resources available in the existing institutions. If in a particular university or in a college or in a school also, the classes remain empty on Sundays, I can make use of those classes for organizing sessions for the students. And there I don't have to, create more brick and mortar structures. Similarly, if the laboratories are free during vacations, everywhere we have long vacations, 15-day vacations, 1-month vacations. If the laboratories are idle and free, we can make use of those laboratories. If teachers are available over the weekend, we can request them, we can empanel them, and they can provide academic support to our learners. So basically, establishment of a network of learner support centers entails collaborating with a large number of institutions which are not directly under the control of the ODL institution. And that is a challenge because every institution may not have the kind of infrastructure that you need in a particular place. You have to look for the right institutions in the right place and have a kind of collaborative arrangement in which both the institution feel that they are gaining something through this agreement, through this arrangement. Perhaps some kind of a financial support will also need to be given to the host institution. By host institution, I mean an institution which will host your learner support center. Because you need to create nodes where your students can come and interact with the teachers, attend uh, those sessions, we call them counseling sessions, attend practical sessions wherever practical sessions are prescribed. So those nodes will be located in these institutions. Now we call them host institutions. So an effective understanding and arrangement with the host institution is very, very important for the success of the functioning, if smooth functioning of the learner support centers. Once you have done that, I think you have done half the job. That's now comes the admission related activity that is also very, very important. Advocacy plays a very, very important role for in the ODL institutions, because in regular colleges and universities, there are a fixed number of programs on offer, and students are present there through the day. Information dissemination becomes easier. But ODL institutions, through their innovative methods, keep on launching new programs. So, how does one reach out to the people and tell them that, look, these are the new opportunities that are available? This is where the role of the network of learner support centers comes into play. If you have your learner support centers, or LSCs in brief, I say, if you have LSCs in rural areas, in remote areas, in hilly areas, it would be very easy for you to reach out to the rural population or the population living in far-flung remote areas. This is only about information dissemination. Then comes the actual process of admission. Now, 20 years back or 25 years back, most of the institutions were asking the applicants to fill a paper-based application, affix a photograph and sign it and attach all the certificates, right? But now things have changed. Thanks to the technology available to us, admission process is in most places an online activity. So to put in place a user-friendly software to make it available easily to all the learners, because we have to keep in mind that while technology has become more available, more accessible, more affordable, there is still a sizable population which for one reason or the other cannot access technology. So technology should not become a barrier. So while it's a good idea to have an online system of admission, some provisioning has to be made for those students who for one reason or the other cannot submit an online application. There should be a provision for offline submission as well, because otherwise we shall be excluding a large student population which may actually be very, very needy, in need of these programs. So an effective online admission system, a user-friendly online admission system, very often we notice that these software that are put in place are very demanding, ask for too much information which eventually may not be useful, or ask for too many uploads which the learners may find difficult. So an intelligently built application form available online as well as offline to those who cannot access it. At this stage, it is important, very, very important, to keep in mind the needs of the institution, because this is the stage where you will be capturing the data of the students about their demographic data, their educational qualification, their experience, their age, gender, location, and so much more. All this information, all this data becomes very, very important when we want to do some systemic research. So the application form has to be designed in a manner, it should be planned very meticulously so that all the data that the institution may require is captured, and the data that is not required is not captured. Again, too many uploads are not required. As long as you are able to establish the eligibility of a student through a couple of documents, I think that's a good idea rather than asking them to upload all the documents from beginning to end. Library services, and having enrolled the students, now it's time to provide them academic support. But before you do that, it's important to induct them into the open and distance learning framework. For many of them, or perhaps for most of them, this might be a completely new experience. They would have had the experience of learning in the classroom mode. So, for them to become a distance learner is a new experience, and we need to tell them in very clear details about what their roles would be and what the institution's role would be, how the teaching learning would be transacted, what kind of assessment requirements are there, whether they are required to submit assignments or attend workshops or seminars. So all this information has to be very clearly given before the actual academic support process begins, because then only they would be able to benefit from the processes. Otherwise they will get lost in the labyrinths of processes. ODL institutions tend to become very, very complex. So we need to give them familiarity and ease so that they can work through their program conveniently. And then providing academic support again would require identifying the right kind of resource persons and then orient them. Because those who are teaching in a classroom mode would require some kind of an orientation to be able to understand the needs of the learners, because counseling as an activity is very, very different from regular classroom teaching, because counseling is supposed to be more interactive and greater participation from the learners is expected. The counselor is expected to be a facilitator. So to realize this scenario, it is important that both the participants, the counselors and the learners, are adequately oriented to benefit from these situations, because the number of counseling sessions would be relatively limited. Of course, it depends on the institution to reduce or increase the number of sessions, but typically they are limited in number. So the student should be able to get the maximum out of the limited number of counseling sessions that are available. Apart from academic counseling support, distance learners need counseling on other aspects also. A student may have a family problem because of which she may not be in a position to submit an assignment within the stipulated date, but she would need to be told that, look, it is all right. We can relax the last date by 7 days, or perhaps if you don't submit your assignment now, there is not much to worry about because you can submit it in the next cycle. So all these things need to be told, and therefore counselors need to be available, willing and available in the entire student life cycle process at different stages. The final part, we have enrolled the students, we have learner support centers in place, and we have provided them academic support. Now we have to assess them and award them degrees. Management of evaluation in an ODL system is relatively complex, because here we depend a great deal on formative assessment. And formative assessment is not just assessment, it is actually a teaching tool. So within your institutional framework, if you prescribe certain assignments to be submitted for each course or each program, Then we need to orient our evaluators into this whole philosophy of formative evaluation. Talk to them, tell them that look, this is not just to give them 30% or 40% marks out of the total marks. This is to give them feedback and on how they have progressed, on their understanding, on their language, on their presentation. It is basically a process of preparing them for the final examination. So, detailed comments from the evaluators need to be recorded on the assignment, and the assignments need to be returned to the evaluators. If you can put in place an online system of evaluation where the evaluators can submit their comments online, nothing like it. But in the absence of that, even a paper-based assignment submission and the comments written by the evaluators, sending them back as feedback, would work wonders and actually would determine to a great extent whether the student would continue with the programs. And in the process of formative assessment, you would perhaps learn more about it in different modules, but let me sum this up by saying that a positive feedback to the learner. Every learner would not be at the same stage of attainment or a cognitive level. There would be different stages. We need to encourage all the students of different cognitive levels, give them a chance to complete their work, and that is possible through the kind of comments that we write. So this is very, very important. And finally, the summative evaluation, that is the final examination, end of course or end of program examination that we call it, conducting them. Well, we have a network of learner support centers. If they can conduct examination, wonderful. Else we have to identify examination centers, get the student to decide in which papers they want to appear in the examination, conduct the examination, arrange the evaluation, ensure that evaluation is transparent and objective, because it is very, very important to win the confidence of the learners in the system. So, beginning from pre-admission counseling to conduct of examination and award of degree, at every stage we have to keep in mind that a distance learner is relatively more vulnerable, more likely to drop out, full of enthusiasm, but perhaps lacking confidence. So we need to very carefully and delicately nurture our learners, take them through different stages in the learning life cycle, and teach them through different stages. You would have got to know in module 2 that the teacher is built into the text, and therefore lots of teaching input goes through the print material as well. So that is one stage of teaching. The second stage of teaching comes during the academic counseling, and the third level of teaching happens through formative assessment. So we make sure that all these three levels of teaching are effective. The students feel happy and welcome and are encouraged to complete the program. I think I have broadly covered the different activities that are covered under support services. I have only given you a practitioner's perspective. You may take a look at the learning material that is provided to you and maybe try to relate the content with what I have presented. Thank you very much.